you are well. I hope you are doing very, very well, especially because I haven't seen you guys in 2 weeks. We were traveling the past 2 weeks, and so I wasn't able to upload anything onto YouTube. And so this video is going to focus simply on making a paper flower. Once you understand the basics of behind the paper flower, it's free reign from there. You can make whatever flower shape you want, whatever. You have your petal shape. You can determine how many tiers you want. So you have a smaller tier, larger and larger tiers, and the way it works, for me, the way it worked was the first tier, the smallest tier where the center bud comes from. The first tier was about maybe like 3 to 4 petals. Then the second tier was about like 4 to 5 petals, and then the third tier would be about like 5 to 8 petals, depending on how big your flower is and if you're overlapping those petals and whatnot. You can do a 4th, 5th, 6th, however many tiers you want to do, you can do it. It will just be a larger flower and a more fuller bloom, and it looks really pretty. We're going to begin our paper flowers, we're going to make the template for each of the petals. We're going to make them in 3 sizes, a large, medium, and small. And the template really helps to keep your flowers consistent. You don't have to keep thinking about drawing these flower shapes. You have the template already done for you. And it is also helpful when you have other people cutting for you. You can just give them the template and they can cut the petals for you. We're going to start off with the large petal. Here I am going to take a piece of paper and fold it in half along the vertical edge. Then I'm going to draw my shape, my petal shape, and you really don't have to worry about making it perfect in any way. Just make sure to leave a straight edge at the bottom of the petal, and we'll get to that pretty soon. Now that we have our large petal, we can make our medium-sized petal. You want to use the same method, fold the paper in half and draw a slightly smaller petal, making sure to draw a straight line edge at the bottom. For the small petal, I fold the paper in about 1/4 size and then I draw the petal shape. This just gives me an idea of how I should size the petals. Cut the petal templates. Trace your petal templates onto your cardstock, and then you can cut the shapes. Once you have your petals all cut, you want to cut a 1 to 1.5 inch slit at the very bottom in the center of your edge, your straight edge at the bottom of the petal. Then you want to use a pencil or a chopstick and roll the outer edges of your petal to create a nice curve. You can roll the petals in different directions also. It helps to make it look a little bit more realistic. To minimize the creasing in the paper, you can use a larger circular object to roll it. I usually like the thinner pencil and the chopstick as well to help give a nicer and tighter curve. Then where you cut your slit, you want to fold those 2 edges together and glue them down with a hot glue gun. Glue gun works a lot better than just using a glue stick, so I would definitely recommend using the glue gun for cardstock, which is heavier. You want to make the tiers that are closest to your bud, so like the first tier with the smallest petal, you want to create a tighter fold here because that will allow the petal to sit more upright. As you go further away from the bud in your second and third tier, you don't want such a tight fold. You want those petals to lie a little bit more flat, so you're going to do a more loose fold. Now you're ready to glue the first tier together. I usually like to place some glue onto the edges of the petal and just glue them together, kind of overlapping each petal slightly. You want to repeat this process as well for the second tier. Again, remember not to fold the edges too much by the slit. You want to have a nicely positioned petal, so try not to fold it too much. I also ended up using different colored cardstock for each tier because I didn't have enough of one color. It worked out pretty nicely here, but it definitely looks really beautiful when you have all of the 3 tiers in one consistent color. It just looks really nice and consistent. Also be careful not to burn yourself with the glue gun. It is pretty hot and I can't tell you how many times I actually burned myself with that glue gun. For the last tier, I glued the petals onto a circular cardstock support. And that really helped it because it's a little bit easier to glue the larger petals onto a circular support. It's also helpful when you want to hang the flowers or pin them to a wall or whatever it is. It also is helpful again to glue your medium or your first 2 tiers onto something. It kind of gives you support to glue your first 2 tiers onto something. For the center bud, I used scrap paper and I pretty much just fringed the edges. You fringe the edges, then roll it up and glue along the way to keep it in place. And then you can make this bud as big as you want. You can make the fringes as much fringe as you want. You kind of just fringe it out and then put it into your center bud and glue it down. Once you have your center bud glued down, you're pretty much all done with your first flower. Congratulations, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, guys, and definitely stay tuned for more. See you next time.